Looking around, Cyan quickly realizes that with security this tight, he will not have many chances to feed Chiram. If he wants to move freely, he will have to wait for night. Inside the tent, Emily is still fussing over him as if they're not standing in the middle of a war zone. When Cyan asks what she is doing, she reminds him of what the Duke said earlier. No one knows when or where they might die. Cyan cannot help thinking that if she really believes that, then she should have gone home instead of following him here. But Emily immediately fires back. If he cannot do anything without her, then who else is supposed to take care of him? Then she orders him to move because it is almost time to eat. Cyan asks about the cloak he requested earlier, but she does not answer. Instead, after a while, she places a doll shaped vaguely like him on the bed, clearly intending to make it look as if he is asleep. That is when Cyan understands her plan. Later that night, after putting on the cloak, he quietly leaves the tent. Because this is the front line, security only gets tighter after dark. If he wants to move around unnoticed, now is his best chance. Using one of his movement techniques, he slips through the camp and disappears into the darkness. According to his memory, there should be plenty of demonic beasts in this area, which makes it the perfect place to use Chiram. The moment he draws the demonic sword, Chiram reacts almost gleefully. The scent of blood in the air excites her immediately, and she says she can barely hold herself back. Just then, a pack of hellhounds comes charging at Cyan. Cyan gives Chiram exactly what she wants, and in the next instant, he cuts through them. His sword skill tears through the pack in a blur, leaving the beasts collapsing one after another. Once the fighting stops, Cyan kneels beside one of the corpses and uses a sharp tube to draw its blood into a wooden cup. Then, without any hesitation, he drinks it. Chiram is delighted by the sensation and says it is the first time she has felt so refreshed since waking up. Cyan, meanwhile, is perfectly satisfied. This is exactly the kind of training he wanted, and the night is still young. As Cyan continues moving through the darkness, Chiram asks how long they are supposed to keep hunting weak monsters like these. But Cyan is not worried at all. The night has only just begun, and there are still plenty of demonic beasts left. Not long after that, the scene shifts away from the battlefield and toward a group of horse-drawn carriages traveling across the road. Inside one of them sits a young girl with white hair. This is Princess Erin. An attendant nervously suggests that the front line is too dangerous and that they should turn back. But Erin immediately shuts that idea down. She reminds them that she is a princess of the Empire, and that she came here because it is her duty to accompany her father on these tours. If they keep treating her like a child, she warns, she really will get angry. The attendant has no choice but to back down. Then, while trying to make conversation, he mentions that the youngest son of the Vert family is also at the front line. Since the boy is around the princess's age, he suggests she might get along with him. Erin shows no interest at all. Still, when she hears the name Cyan Vert, she quietly repeats it to herself. Back on the battlefield, another clash is already underway. Monsters keep appearing, and the soldiers continue cutting them down one after another. As the battle starts winding down, Vilith orders the troops to check for injuries and prepare to return. But before long, something catches his attention. At the same time, Cyan is elsewhere, finishing off yet another beast. When his father asks how he is adjusting to life on the front lines, Cyan answers respectfully that he is learning something new every day. That answer seems to please Vilith. He admits that he expected Cyan to want to run back home by now. Instead, he says he is proud that Cyan endured this long. Then he tells him to come to his tent early the next morning, because there is something he wants to discuss. Cyan agrees, but inwardly, he cannot help being surprised. He has never seen his father treat him this kindly before. Later that same night, Cyan returns to hunting. Deep in monster territory, the sounds of movement and violent attacks echo through the darkness. Before long, a massive creature erupts from underground and attacks him. Cyan narrowly dodges and instantly recognizes it. A death worm. Normally, creatures like that should only appear much deeper in the valley. Chiram immediately notices the problem and suggests that if Cyan is struggling, he should simply let her take over for a while. Naturally, Cyan is suspicious. He knows full well that a demonic sword is always waiting for the chance to swallow its owner whole. But Chiron points out something important. The Deathworm's body regenerates any shallow wound almost instantly. If he keeps attacking it like this, the fight will drag on forever. Cyan knows she's right. By now, it has already been a full month since he came to the front lines. He has consumed the blood of countless demonic beasts, but even so, it still is not enough. If he wants to grow stronger, then he has no choice. So, in the end, Cyan decides to take the risk. He tells Chiron that he will play along with her for now. Chiron is thrilled. At that moment, Cyan activates one of his strongest techniques, Demonique Sword Manifestation. The instant it begins, his body is wrapped in a red-black aura. Then everything changes. In a single overwhelming burst, the Deathworm's huge body is sliced apart. Chiron takes control just long enough to display her true power, and the result is absolute destruction. With another sword technique, the monster is cut into pieces and finally killed. Elsewhere, soldiers soon find a corpse. The remains are still fresh, and the mana lingering around them feels ominous. Yulkin immediately notices that something is wrong, and Vilith orders the area to be investigated at once. If a demon was involved, then they cannot afford to ignore it. As they examine the body, one thing stands out. The sore marks on it feel strangely familiar. Back in camp, Cyan has already returned to bed, completely exhausted. Using Chiron like that, even for a single monster, has pushed his body to the edge. Had he tried something like this just a month earlier, his body probably would have collapsed completely. Chiron, however, is no fool. By now, she has already pieced together the truth. Cyan talks, fights, and reacts like someone far older than he should be. He knows the geography of Lemea Valley too well, understands mist techniques as if he trained in them for decades, and openly speaks of having died once before. So Chiron asks him the obvious question. Is he a regressor? Cyan answers as casually as ever. Of course he is. Chiron asks it so casually that, for a moment, it almost sounds ridiculous. But to her, all the signs were already there. Cyan talks like someone far older than he looks. He knows the terrain of Lemea Valley too well, handles mist techniques as if he trained with them for decades, and even said himself that he had already died once before. So when she finally calls him a regressor, Cyan does not even bother denying it. He simply says that he thought he had already made it obvious enough. Chiron, of course, is not satisfied with that answer at all. She snaps back, asking how any of that was supposed to be obvious when he never properly explained anything. But Cyan only shrugs it off. He is far too lazy to go into details. Even so, Chiron keeps thinking, if he truly regressed, then the person who killed him must have been someone extremely powerful. And judging from the way Cyan looks at the holy sword, she starts piecing together the rest. In the end, she reaches her own conclusion. The one who killed him was most likely the owner of that holy sword. And if that is true, then Cyan's goal must be revenge. Cyan does not confirm it directly, but he does ask why she thinks that. Chiron answers bluntly. Anyone would figure it out after seeing that look on his face. Then, just as quickly, her tone turns darker. She warns him not to misunderstand their relationship. If she ever sees him falter or lose, she will devour him herself. The moment she says that, Cyan punches her without hesitation and sends her flying. Then he coldly tells her to know her place. He is not stupid enough to fail here. Chiron can only glare back, while Cyan inwardly notes that she has not changed at all. She is exactly the same as she was in his previous life. Not long after that, Cyan steps outside and immediately notices that the atmosphere around camp feels different. Something happened. Emily approaches him and explains that a high-level monster's corpse was found near the entrance to the valley. The moment he hears that, Cyan realizes they are talking about the Deathworm. Trying not to reveal anything, he quickly asks if there was any other news, any mention of a suspicious person, or anything connected to him. Before Emily can say much more, Yulkin appears and informs Cyan that the Duke wants to see him immediately. That only makes Cyan more suspicious, because the moment he hears that, one thought crosses his mind. His father noticed. Soon, Cyan arrives at Vilith's tent and greets him formally. The Duke tells him to sit, then gets straight to the point. What was he doing last night? Cyan answers calmly that he went to bed early because he was tired. Vilith says nothing for a moment. In truth, he had already suspected something. The sword traces left on the death worm reminded him of Cyan's fighting style. But even he finds it hard to believe that a child this young could kill a monster like that. So, after a brief silence, he changes direction. He tells Cyan about what happened near the camp, and says that, after looking into it, he believes the culprit may have been missed. An ancient assassin organization that vanished 300 years ago. According to Vilith, the corpse of the death worm was covered in black fog, the exact trace associated with Eru, the god worshipped by mist. Cyan listens quietly, but inwardly he is impressed. His father managed to reach the truth with almost no information. Vilith then warns him to be careful. No one knows why mist would suddenly appear again, but if they truly are moving in the shadows, then the Empire must be informed at once. Cyan gives an obedient answer, and for the moment, it seems his father has chosen not to suspect him any further. But the conversation does not end there. Vilith then asks whether Cyan knows who is visiting today. Cyan recalls hearing that the Emperor was supposed to come, though he did not know it would be so soon. Vilith smiles and says he wanted to ask Cyan for a favor related to that visit. Before he can explain further, however, a voice suddenly announces the Emperor's arrival. And with that, the atmosphere in the camp changes completely. The moment the Emperor arrives, Vilith steps forward and formally greets him as the Lord of Illis. But the Emperor immediately tells him to stop being so stiff. They're old friends, after all. Then his gaze shifts toward Cyan. The Emperor looks at him with interest and remarks that, for a boy this young to be living in such a harsh place, the Vert family really is different. Cyan lowers his head and introduces himself properly as the youngest son of the Vert household. At first, he assumes the favor his father mentioned was nothing serious. Maybe Vilith simply wanted to show him off a little in front of the Emperor. But then the Emperor calls someone forward. From one of the carriages, a beautiful girl steps out and introduces herself as the 5th princess of the Empire, Erin Severies. The moment Cyan sees her, he immediately recognizes her. In his previous life, she was known as the Tragic Princess. Not long after the introductions, Vilith pulls Cyan aside and finally explains the favor he had in mind. He wants Cyan to escort Princess Erin for the day. Cyan is not thrilled by the idea. Vilith, however, tells him not to overthink it. Since they're around the same age and will both be attending the academy, this is a good chance to get acquainted. There is no harm in building a connection with someone from the royal family. Cyan understands the reasoning. His father probably hopes they might form a bond similar to the one he has with the Emperor. But in Cyan's mind, the choice of person could not be worse. Erin cannot become his friend. That is something only he knows, because he already knows how her future ends. Even so, he has no reason to openly refuse, so he simply obeys. As the two of them move through the area, Erin starts asking questions about everything she sees. Before long, her eyes land on the blood-red river running through the valley, and she asks why the water is red. Cyan explains that it is called the Blood River. The demonic beasts that grow old, become injured, or can no longer survive instinctively throw themselves into it. Their bodies break down inside the current, and over time, that is what stained the river red. Hearing that, Erin is horrified. She asks if that means the river is literally filled with the corpses and fluids of demonic beasts. Cyan calmly tells her yes. They drink from it and wash in it too, so it is as disgusting as it looks. He warns her not to go anywhere near it. Naturally, Erin asks what lies at the end of that river. Cyan answers with a small smile. The demon realm. And if she keeps following it long enough, she might even meet the Demon King. He is clearly teasing her, but Erin takes the answer seriously enough to be unsettled. Before their conversation can go much further, a signal suddenly appears in the sky. A flare of yellow light rises from one of the outposts. Erin asks what it means. Cyan explains that a yellow signal means demonic beasts are approaching. At once, the atmosphere around them changes. Vilith gives a sharp order to protect the Emperor and prepares to move out with the Guardian Knights. But instead of staying back, the Emperor says he is getting bored and intends to join the fight himself. Even Vilith looks reluctant, but in the end, he cannot refuse. Then, unexpectedly, Vilith turns to Cyan and tells him to come as well. Cyan answers at once. He will go. Eren is stunned. She asks if Cyan can actually fight demonic beasts. Cyan tells her that he still only supports from the rear, and that she should head to the shelter. But Eren suddenly insists on coming too. The request is so absurd that Cyan is momentarily speechless. Even when the attendants and knights try to stop her, she remains stubborn. If Cyan can go, then she can too. That is enough to irritate him. Without wasting another second, Cyan calls Yulkin over and orders him to escort the princess safely back to camp. Eren protests immediately, furious at being treated like a child. But Cyan steps close to her and coldly asks if she is prepared to take responsibility for the lives that may be lost because of her selfishness. That single question silences her. She is so shaken that she nearly bursts into tears on the spot. Cyan leaves her behind with one final remark. If she's going to cry like a child, then she should go back like one. And with that, he heads toward the battlefield. As Cyan heads toward the battlefield, the clash has already begun. At the center of the fighting, giant snail-like demonic beasts are crushing soldiers under their weight. The troops struggle to hold their formation, and the chaos spreads fast. Then Vilith steps forward and immediately takes control. He orders the soldiers to pull themselves together, protect the Emperor, and kill every last monster in sight. The command alone is enough to steady the entire front line, and the troops rush back into battle without hesitation. At the same time, Cyan's thoughts drift toward Eren. Emperor Dion Severies had two wives. The former empress gave birth to the first and second princesses, while the current empress gave birth to the third and fourth princes. But Eren, the fifth princess, was different. She was born to a peasant mistress, which made her an outsider even within the royal family. Because of her mixed blood, most people treated her like a decorative doll rather than a true princess. Still, Eren never stopped trying to fulfill her duties. She studied harder than anyone else and kept doing her best, no matter how coldly people looked at her. And yet, in the end, that effort led nowhere good. In Cyan's previous life, Eren was framed for treason by people who hated her. She was expelled from the royal family, driven out of the empire, and later died alone on an island from illness. That was why people remembered her as the tragic princess. To Cyan, her fate was proof of how cruel royal politics could be. Just then, the Emperor moves. Without hesitation, Dion unleashes a powerful lightning technique, and bolts of holy lightning crash down across the battlefield. The giant snails are struck one after another, their bodies instantly burned and split apart. Watching from nearby, Cyan cannot help acknowledging the Emperor's strength. Officially, Dion is known as an 8-star mage, but if he had not become Emperor, he could easily have risen to the top of the Mage Association. For a man like that, an intermediate-ranked demonic beast is hardly a threat. After the battle finally comes to an end, the atmosphere settles slightly, and later that night, the Emperor sits down with Vilith for a drink. The Emperor jokes that it has been a while since they shared one, though he also complains that he is the only one drinking. Vilith, as always, refuses alcohol while stationed on the front lines. Their conversation soon shifts to politics. The Emperor reveals that there has been a recent surge in assassinations among the nobles. Vilith asks if there is any pattern, and the Emperor says there is. Every victim so far has been a corrupt official. On top of that, black fog was found at all of the murder scenes. The moment he hears that, Vilith's expression changes. He says he found traces of the same thing here yesterday, meaning the followers of Black Fog may have begun moving again. The Emperor agrees that it is possible, but says the matter is still troubling. Even if those nobles deserved it, people will only grow more fearful if the killings continue. Then he brings up another issue. Apparently, some nobles have started trying to connect these incidents to Princess Eren. Vilith asks if they are seriously attempting to tie the fifth princess to the murders. The Emperor says he has been dismissing the rumors as nonsense. They're clearly people who want to use Eren for their own purposes. Then, in a much more serious tone, he asks Vilith for a favor. Not as Emperor, but as a friend. If he dies before Vilith does, he wants him to protect Eren. Vilith accepts without hesitation and promises to carry out that request. Later that night, rain begins to fall over the camp. Inside Cyan's tent, Emily is still irritated over how his earlier escort of Eren ended. She complains that he completely wasted the chance to build a better relationship with the princess. To her, he handled it terribly, but Cyan feels differently. In his eyes, that was never a meeting that was going to end well. That night, as heavy rain pours over the camp, Cyan prepares to head out again. Just as he is about to leave, he notices someone standing outside his tent in the rain. It is Eren. Even Emily is startled by her sudden appearance. But Eren, after briefly apologizing, asks if she can speak with Cyan for a moment. Once Emily steps outside, the two of them are finally alone. Eren asks how long Cyan has been living at the front lines. He answers that it has been about a month. Then Cyan asks the obvious question. Why did she come to see him? Eren hesitates for a moment before apologizing for what happened earlier. She admits that she did not behave the way a princess should have, and says she understands if he found her troublesome. Cyan responds politely, saying there is no need to apologize and that he was rude as well. At first, that seems to ease the tension, but then Eren's expression shifts. She says Cyan is different from her. He is acknowledged by others, he has a place, and he is far more mature. Meanwhile, she has nothing. Then, in a quiet voice, she asks if the two of them can at least become friends once they enter the academy. The moment he understands where this is going, Cyan cuts her off. He tells her directly that he cannot help her. That answer clearly hurts Eren. She asks if even he thinks she is nothing more than a hollow shell of a princess. Cyan does not respond. So Eren lowers her head and says she understands. There is no benefit in being close to someone like her. She apologizes for wasting his time and starts to leave. Then she mentions Askel. That single name makes Cyan's expression change immediately. He grabs her wrist and demands to know how she knows his brother. Startled, Eren explains that she met Askel during a visit to the academy the year before. According to her, Askel told her not to care about what others thought and to simply fulfill her duty as a princess. The moment Cyan hears that, everything clicks into place. He knows Askel better than anyone. If Askel took interest in Eren, then it was never out of kindness. It had to be the beginning of some scheme. Cyan is just about to warn her when the entire camp suddenly shakes. Before either of them can react, Emily rushes in and screams for Cyan to run. A massive object crashes down from above and smashes straight into his tent. The strike happens so quickly that almost no one can react in time. When the dust settles, a giant monster is standing there, holding a huge tree trunk like a club. Panic instantly spreads through the rear camp. Soldiers rush in every direction while Emily crouches on the ground in terror, convinced Cyan might already be dead. The commotion quickly reaches Vilith and the Emperor as well. A soldier rushes in with a report saying that advanced-rank demonic beasts have suddenly attacked the rear camps, and that the princess may have been there when it happened. The Emperor immediately orders the Imperial army to move and secure Eren's safety. Back at the destroyed camp, the situation only gets worse. Death worms and ogres have somehow appeared near the rear lines, even though monsters like these should only exist much deeper in the valley. Cyan quickly realizes something is wrong. Monsters are not supposed to come here. And worse, they may not have come here by accident. For a brief moment, he even wonders if they are reacting to him. At the rear camp, Emily is on the verge of tears, convinced Cyan might have died in the attack. But in reality, Cyan managed to react at the very last second. The moment the tent was crushed, he grabbed Eren and threw both of them out of the way before the impact could kill them. Now, while chaos spreads around them, Eren can only think that all of this happened because she came to see him. The Imperial Knights with her quickly reassure her that protecting her is their duty, even if it costs them their lives. But before the situation can settle, Cyan suddenly senses something else. He tells the knights to move. They do not understand what he means until it is too late. A troll appears from behind and grabs one of them in a single motion, crushing him to death. The others are horrified. Cyan steps forward at once and tells everyone to take the princess and run. He will distract the troll himself. Emily, surprisingly, does not even hesitate. She grabs Aaron and starts pulling her away, dragging the others with her as Cyan stays behind. The moment the troll's eyes lock onto him, Cyan immediately realizes the truth. It is not after the princess. It is after him. The troll throws away the body of the dead knight and charges straight for Cyan. Its huge fist comes crashing down, but Cyan cuts through its arm in one clean motion. As the severed limb falls, Chiram casually explains what is happening. Cyan reeks of demonic beast blood after everything he has consumed, so naturally monsters are being drawn toward him. Cyan is furious that she kept that to herself, but there is no time to argue now. More monsters are already approaching. With a cold look, he pulls Chiram free and says he does not care how many come. He will cut them all down. Then he rushes straight at the troll. The monster throws another punch, but Cyan slips past it and severs its head in a single strike. The giant body crashes to the ground, and Cyan immediately thinks the same thing he always does. What a waste. That much advanced rank blood would have been worth collecting. But there is no time for that either. The moment the troll dies, Cyan looks ahead and sees even more monsters gathering in the darkness. Chiram is delighted. To her, this is no longer a fight. It is a feast. Then, in the middle of all that bloodlust, Cyan suddenly notices something much worse. A dragon. A large one, with a purple body. Chiram instantly identifies it as a devil dragon, though still a young one. Even so, the sheer presence of it is enough to change the entire battlefield. But rather than panic, Cyan smiles. He does not care why a dragon appeared here. What matters is that he catches it. Chiram naturally has the same thought, except to her, it is not about catching it. It is about eating it. So without hesitation, Cyan activates demonic sword manifestation and merges with Chiram. At the same time, elsewhere in the camp, the Emperor and Vilith are finishing off the last of the monsters attacking the rear lines. The Emperor asks whether that was the final one, and Vilith says it seems so. But then the Emperor immediately asks about Aaron and Cyan. Vilith admits he cannot find any trace of them near the destroyed tents. Even so, when the Emperor urges him to hurry and search for his son, Vilith remains calm. He says they must first stabilize the rear camp. If these positions collapse, the demonic beast will break through and enter the Empire. Rebuilding the defenses comes first. Emily is horrified by that answer and asks what about Cyan. Vilith only responds that Cyan has already done his duty by helping the princess escape. That is what it means to be a Vert. The answer shocks everyone around him, especially Aaron. But before anyone can say more, a deafening roar suddenly tears through the sky. Aaron looks up at once. It is the dragon, and hanging from one of its legs is Cyan. The sight is so absurd that even the Emperor is left speechless. Vilith, however, says nothing. He only watches as his son clings to the flying dragon high above the camp. From the ground, the sight is unbelievable. A dragon is flying across the sky, and Cyan is hanging from one of its legs for dear life. Even in that ridiculous position, Cyan's thoughts are still perfectly clear. He never expected things to turn out like this. All he wanted was the dragon's blood. Instead, he ended up getting dragged into the sky in front of half the battlefield. And the worst part is that all the people below can see him. Chiram appears beside him and complains, asking why he is just clinging there instead of doing something. Cyan snaps back at her, asking what exactly she expects him to do while the whole camp is watching. If he uses the demonic sword in full view of everyone, he will be exposed immediately. Chiram naturally does not care. To her, if he does nothing, then he might as well just die. Meanwhile, down on the ground, Vilith has already begun preparing a spell. Cyan quickly recognizes it. His father is about to use an advanced 8-star spell, one powerful enough to tear the dragon apart. Without wasting another second, Vilith casts it. Dozens of golden swords appear and launch themselves into the sky. At first, Cyan is genuinely nervous. But then he realizes the dragon is avoiding the attacks surprisingly well. It twists through the air and dodges the blades one after another, which actually gives Cyan a bit of hope. Maybe it can keep avoiding them. But that hope does not last. One sword suddenly attacks from the dragon's blind spot and slices across its leg. The dragon jerks from a hit, and in that instant, Cyan loses his grip. He starts falling. As the wind roars around him, Cyan curses his luck. He cannot believe he finally got his hands on such a rare target, only for it to end like this. Kyram yells at him, asking if he is really about to die by smashing into the ground. Cyan refuses to use mist techniques in front of everyone, so for a split second, he honestly does not know what to do. Then, just before panic fully takes over, an idea comes to him. There's only one way out of this. Below him flows the Blood River, the revolting, monster-filled river that runs through the valley. Kyram instantly understands what he is thinking and reacts in disgust, asking if he is seriously planning to jump into that filth. Cyan has no better option, so he falls straight into it. The next moment, the red current swallows him whole. It is disgusting, but he survives. Far away from the battlefield, in another land, two demons sense the disturbance. One of them notices that a devil dragon has been flying around in an unusual direction. Another points out that it must have wandered too far and gotten into trouble. At first, the young demon among them does not think much of it. A dragon should never lose to humans. But then he feels something strange, a very unusual energy. It is foreign, but somehow familiar at the same time. Curious, he decides to check it out personally. Back at the river, bubbles rise through the blood-red current. A moment later, Cyan finally emerges and drags himself onto the nearby shore, gasping for air. Kyram, equally drenched and furious, tells him not to even speak to her right now because she is still deciding how she should kill him. Cyan, however, is too busy trying to breathe. After everything that just happened, the only thing he can think is that his life has truly become ridiculous. After dragging himself out of the Blood River, Cyan barely has time to catch his breath before he senses another presence nearby. Then a voice suddenly calls out, saying it knew something interesting would be waiting here. The moment Cyan hears that voice, his entire body tenses. He knows it. Standing before him is a young demon boy, but Cyan recognizes him instantly. It is Valkyrian, the Demon King. In his previous life, anyone who stood before this being reached the same conclusion. Valkyrian was the embodiment of evil itself. So the moment he appears, Cyan instinctively curses under his breath. Of all places and of all times, why did it have to be now? Valkyrian, however, does not attack right away. Instead, he simply stares at Cyan and asks a single question. Is he human? Cyan does not answer immediately. That brief hesitation is enough. In the blink of an eye, Valkyrian vanishes from where he was standing and appears right behind him. His voice turns sharper as he asks if Cyan wants to fight. Cyan reacts on instinct and swings his dagger backward. Valkyrian slips away again, but not before a strand of his hair is cut. For a moment, everything goes quiet. Then, to Cyan's surprise, Valkyrian starts laughing. Instead of getting angry, he actually seems amused. He says he had heard there were children with boundless potential, and maybe that rumor was not false after all. After all, Cyan just managed to cut his hair. At that moment, Kyram appears and quietly asks who this terrifying person is. Cyan answers with the simplest possible truth. The Demon King. Even Kyram is shaken by that. She immediately says the situation is hopeless. In Cyan's current condition, there is no way he can defeat someone like this. Cyan knows that too. If this turns into a real fight, surviving alone will be a miracle. But strangely enough, Valkyrian shows no intention of attacking. Instead, he tells Cyan to relax. He says he has no interest in fighting some frightened little kid. If Cyan is really that scared, they can even talk while he lies down. And just to prove the point, he casually drops onto the ground. That only confuses Cyan even more. This is nothing like the Demon King he remembers. Still, after the atmosphere eases slightly, Valkyrian asks the same question again. Is he human? This time, Cyan answers yes. Then Valkyrian asks how he ended up here. Cyan tells him the truth. He was swept here by the river. Hearing that, Valkyrian remarks that this must be Cyan's first time in the demon realm. Then he adds that Cyan's aura feels strange. That single comment makes Cyan tense all over again. He quickly answers that he is just a normal human. Valkyrian immediately calls that a lie. He says Cyan clearly acts like someone who already knows him, even though the two of them have never met before. That observation unsettles Cyan more than any threat could have. Valkyrian then explains why he came in the first place. While making his rounds, he sensed a strange energy coming from this direction. Cyan asks what he means by that. Valkyrian answers very simply. As the Demon King, it is naturally his duty to watch over the lands he rules. That answer leaves Cyan stunned. In his previous life, the Demon King was the one who plunged the world into chaos. But the person standing before him now sounds nothing like the monster he remembers. So Cyan gathers his courage and asks the question directly. If he is really the Demon King, then what is it he wants? Valkyrian laughs at the boldness of the question, but he still answers. Nothing complicated. He simply wants his people to live well and eat well. But if anyone dares threaten them, then he will kill them all. That is his duty as Demon King. For a brief moment, Cyan feels the same terrifying presence he remembers from his previous life. It is still there, hidden beneath the surface. And in that instant, he realizes the truth. The Demon King standing before him has not changed yet. Something in the future must have pushed him over the edge. And if Cyan wants to change anything at all, then he has to stop that from happening. So, standing face to face with the Demon King, Cyan makes a bold decision. He asks Valkyrian if he would be willing to make a deal. That immediately catches the Demon King's attention. Cyan explains that something terrible is going to happen in the future, something serious enough to threaten the people Valkyrian rules. He does not know every detail, but he is certain it will lead to a great war between humans and demons. Valkyrian's expression hardens. He asks what Cyan is talking about and why any of that should matter to him. Cyan answers as calmly as he can. He says that if things continue the way they did before, Valkyrian will eventually decide to invade human territory. So before that happens, Cyan wants one promise. No matter what occurs, he wants the Demon King to promise that he will not start a war. To Valkyrian, the whole explanation sounds absurd. He points out that Cyan's words barely make sense. Even so, he humors him and asks a very simple question. If he agrees, then what exactly will Cyan offer in return? Cyan does not hesitate. He says that if that day ever comes, he will help him. No matter what happens, he will do everything he can to support him. That answer makes Valkyrian look at him much more seriously. For a moment, he studies Cyan as if deciding whether he is insane or sincere. Then he asks for his name. Cyan answers clearly, Cyan Vert. After hearing that, Valkyrian finally gives his response. As the ruler of the demon realm, he promises that no matter what happens in the future, he will not invade human land. But in exchange, Cyan must also keep his own promise. A deal is a deal. With that, Valkyrian spreads his wings and rises into the sky, disappearing just as suddenly as he appeared. After he leaves, Cyan is left standing there in silence. Not long after, a search team from the front lines finally finds him near the riverbank. Since he survived both the Devil Dragon and being swept away by the Blood River, the people around camp begin calling him the boy who survived the Devil Dragon. Eventually, Cyan is taken to an abbey near the border of Valus, a place now being used as a military hospital. When he wakes up there, Erin is sitting by his bedside. Judging by her expression, she has clearly been waiting for a chance to speak with him. The moment Cyan opens his eyes, Erin hesitates, blushes, and starts trying to ask him something. At first, it almost sounds like she is about to say something absurd, but in the end, the question that comes out is even more confusing. She asks if he will be hers. Cyan stares at her, completely baffled by what he just heard. Erin quickly realizes how bad that sounded. Embarrassed and flustered, she immediately starts tearing up, convinced she is once again humiliated